Okay, so we're nearing the end of the summer and we've had so much move in and move out over the last several months. It's been our busiest time. And through these last few months, so many different kinds of situations have come up. One of the things that came up recently was an owner returning to a property who wasn't so happy about the condition. There's a lot more behind that. I'm going to get into that. But what I want to talk about today is having realistic expectations about what your property looked like when you left it and what you should expect it to look like when you return. What matters? What should you be concerned with? What can you actually do? So stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Sue Richey. I am the principal broker of Richey Property Management here in Northern Virginia, and we manage about 750 properties throughout this region for so many owners, investors, and so on. And so we have been really busy these last few months, as I said, just dealing with the sheer volume of move-ins and move-outs. And I think now September's come, we can take a little bit of a breather. But a situation that happened recently that I think is worthy of making a video about, and that is we had an owner who turned his property over to us a little over a year ago. Property was in decent condition, but you know what? The paint was old. It was fine. We leased it to a tenant. They lived there for a year, and now this owner wanted to move back. Well, the tenant did not leave the property in such good condition. We did the things that we were supposed to do along the way, and I want to talk about those in a minute. We did the inspections. We did what we needed to do, but we can't be there every minute. And when a tenant moves out and they damage walls and they take all the things off of the walls, and sometimes they do them carefully and sometimes they don't. In this case, they took TV mounts, kind of ripped them off the wall. Well, there is damage there. However, in this case, this owner thinks that we need to redo the whole house, and that is on our dime, but that's not really true, and that's not really fair. Our job as a property manager is to make sure the tenant upholds all of the terms of the lease and abides by the lease, and we enforce all of those terms, and we do the things that we need to do to facilitate repairs and make sure that things happen as they should, and inspections and so on. It doesn't mean that we make the house brand new when they move in. I think that's where the problem has come in. So we have a pretty hefty security deposit for this tenant. There are things that are legitimate that we can charge them. In this case, the areas where they ripped out some things off the wall, where there was true damage, absolutely we can charge for that. We can repair the wall, we can paint that wall. Now, the tricky part here is that the old paint was maybe 5 years old. The new paint, as close as the painter can get to match, it is not going to match perfectly. So now this owner is asking us to paint the whole house. Well, that's not the tenant's responsibility. The tenant doesn't need to paint the whole house, and nor would that ever hold up in court. They need to repair the damage. We are not responsible for painting the whole house because this was not brand new paint, and it is not our responsibility. We are repairing what was damaged. So there's a lot of other things going on here. But I think the bigger thing is having realistic expectations when you leave your home and when you come back. Okay, so let's use an analogy like this. When you rent a car, you rent it and you use it, and if you damage it, you pay for it. So the wear and tear of that vehicle during the time that you rented it, the rubber has worn off the tires, there's, the mats have gotten worn, whatever. That's not anything they can charge you for. If you damage the bumper, for example, they can charge you for that. If they have to put a new bumper on or repaint it, they can charge you for that. They cannot charge you to repaint the entire car. That would be unreasonable, right? Similarly, your tenant is paying you rent in exchange for using the house. Using means there will be normal wear and tear. There will be scuffs on the wall. Carpet will get worn out. Flooring will get worn out. If they damage the home, yes, you can charge for the repair of those items, and you have to provide receipts for that, and you have to get the work done. Okay. It can get tricky in a case like I am talking about now, where paint specifically, because that paint isn't going to match 5-6-year-old paint. It gets tricky, but it is the way it is. So in this case, we said to the owner, you can keep the money from the tenant to repair the damaged walls. If you want to repaint and have everything be brand new and fresh, then that extra part is going to have to be on your dime. But that's not the expectation that he thought somebody, either the tenant or us, would be turning this back over shiny and new. This is not a shiny and new house. This is not anybody's responsibility. And so whether you manage the property yourself or if you have a property manager, it's important that those expectations be correct so that you're not unhappy, frustrated, disappointed. Okay, so I've got a few things that I wanted to give you some pointers to help you either avoid a situation like this from happening, or if it does, just having a different mindset and putting some things in place so that you just can mitigate your losses. Okay, so my first point is understand that this property is going to look different than when you left it. I know it's easy when you've been gone for a while to remember your property fondly and remember, that you feel like it was perfect when you left, but the reality is it probably wasn't. It was probably far from perfect. When you moved out, there were probably scuffs on the wall. Maybe you did repaint everything and it was in great condition, but paint, again, is one of those things that only has a short lifespan. It's a wear and tear item. It's not going to hold up in court to say the tenant needed to paint. If they damage something, again, that's different. But understanding that it's going to look different when you come back because it will have been used is important. If you can understand that and remember that is just part of being a landlord, that the home is going to get used, maybe a little bit of abuse, and maybe sometimes between different tenants you're going to have to spend more money than others, then it's going to make you feel a lot better when you see the property in a condition perhaps that you really don't, we're hoping that it wouldn't be in, okay? It's not going to look brand new, not going to look perfect like it was when you left. So that brings me to my second point, which is doing really good move-out inspections and a move-in inspection, because when you do that, you have documented the condition. So say when you move out, you document the condition in great detail and before this tenant moves in, if there's some time period, but you have that documentation. So it's not just from memory, it's not any of that. You have it in photos, in a video, so you can clearly see what it looked like then, what it looks like now, and you can properly assess the damage versus realizing what's normal wear and tear and what you just have to spend money on. Okay, the next thing also falls in this same line, which is to do regular inspections. If you're managing your own property and you live, nearby, you have to make sure that you see that property at least every 6 months. You might see it more frequently because you might have a repair to do, you might head over there, kind of do a little looking around, but every 6 months, you should plan on doing kind of a pretty organized walkthrough. Walk through the entire house, look around the outside, look for signs of potential repairs, potential damage if you don't do something. For example, let's say, the gutters are pulling away or downspouts are not going away from the house. Well, that could cause problems later. If you can prevent some of those things and take care of things like that and fix them up front, you'll prevent bigger problems later. You also want to take an opportunity then to look through the house to see for signs of potential lease violations, like more people living there than should be, or maybe pets that shouldn't be there. So things like that. That organized inspection will help you understand how a tenant is living and things like that during the tenancy. However, this doesn't prevent potential damage when they move out. Again, a house looks very different when it's empty than when it's occupied. Okay, and lastly, you want to make sure you have a really good security deposit. Security deposit is just helping to mitigate and minimize some of the potential expenses later. It's not a guarantee. It's not, an insurance. It's not saying, hey, I'm going to use this entire security deposit if my house doesn't look exactly like I want. If you say, let's say you have a $3,000 security deposit and you just add up everything that you think that should be charged to the tenant. If they take you to court, there's a very good chance you're not going to get any of it. You're certainly not going to get all of it. You have to know what things are reasonable, what you can actually charge for, and you actually have to have receipts and estimates for the exact amount. And then you have to do that work. So you need to be smart about that, but you have to make sure that you have a security deposit. That's what it's for. It's for damage caused by the tenant that is beyond normal wear and tear. So there are a lot of regulations around the amount of security deposit you can have. So make sure you know what you legally can have within your jurisdiction. Typically, you're going to see at least a deposit equal to a month's rent. If there are other circumstances that might require additional security deposit, like maybe the credit isn't perfect and there's some other things, the debt to income ratio, things like that, you might ask for an additional half month, possibly 2 months. Generally speaking, you can't collect more than 2 months rent. But again, check out what you can have in your jurisdiction and make sure you at least have a deposit, because it will at least cover some of the damage, if not all of it. So those are just a few points to kind of help you, have some things in place to help offset potential damage. But I think the biggest thing and the biggest point I'm trying to make here is really about mindset and expectation. So as a landlord, you've got to have that mindset that you're going to sometimes have to spend money. Sometimes it's kind of like gambling. You know what? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I'm not saying finding tenants is like gambling. I'm just saying sometimes you win the scratch offs, sometimes you don't. And the times that you don't, you have to be prepared to spend that extra little bit of money if you need to. This is still your home. This is still your asset. You are renting it to someone. They are paying you money in exchange for using it. Remember it. Think about it like that. You still want to do what you need to do to take care of your own asset. Yes, you can hold that tenant responsible for what they damage, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your home is safe and sound and is in the condition that you want it to be. So I hope this was helpful in kind of thinking about this and using this experience we recently had as a lesson in what you might have to do if you experience something like this later. If you like this information and you like the content here, I hope you'll subscribe to our channel. If you have situations that you've encountered that you want some advice about or want me to talk about or make a video about, please share those in the comments. I love new things and new ideas, and we all have different experiences. So if there's anything I can help you with, talk about, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.